Okay, I'm gonna just broadcast. Okay. Hopefully. Hello, hi Dee. If you guys would, I don't think I have to manually let anyone in, but if you'll let me know if you can hear okay, that'd be great. Hi Danny, hi Neva, hi Nicole. If you guys would just sort of give a thumbs up in the chat or let us know if you can see and hear okay.
We'd love to see you too.
I know, it kind of took the pressure off. I told everyone they could just listen in because I know how, Mondays are. But yeah, if you want to turn on your video, you might be able to do that, I hope. Okay, Danny has given a heads up that everyone can see great. Let's see, hi Hope. Officially Oaks, Houston wedding officiant, hello. Yeah, if you guys would just drop us in the chat like where you're from, that would be great. We'd love to know a little bit more about who's attending today, sort of what market you're in. Good morning from Dallas. Hi, Hope. What a Monday. It's already been busy for me. Well, we are going to start in just a couple of minutes. We're going to give it just a little bit more time for any other participants to join. Really appreciate you guys being here. We're excited to talk branding basics today and how to avoid sending mixed messages to your ideal client, even, back to the core basics of figuring out who that ideal client is. We're going to dive deep today. We're going to try to keep everything under an hour just to sort of give you guys a roadmap. We're also going to provide some resources. In fact, if you got the 20-minute reminder email before this session started, it did have a link to a Google document. We're not going to go, through the nitty gritty of that, but it might be helpful for you to just kind of glance at as we talk through different topics this morning. And it will be a very valuable sort of takeaway for, anyone that's really sort of focusing on their brand, making sure they're reaching their target market with precision. How do you identify who that target market is? The workbook, I would say it's about 5 pages, is a great way to kind of help you figure all of that out. So, hi, Josh.
Got some old friends on here.
I know. Yes, we'll give it just maybe 2 more minutes, allow a couple more to join, and then we'll just dive right in. Yes, as we were going through the attendee or the participant list, those who had registered for this event, it seemed like there was a great cross section, a great group of different types of vendors, some, venue owners and operators, some, outside the scope of sort of what we think of as traditional wedding vendors, not, photographers and that sort of thing. And I really couldn't tell, but some looked newer to the industry than others. So I think we're all at different sort of life cycles in terms of our company and its growth and the brand identity for each of our companies. But feel free to also engage with us today. The chat's open. If you have any questions, if you want us to focus on any particular subject matter, feel free to just drop those questions into the chat box, and we will try to get to as many of those as possible. Make sure that you walk away with as much information as possible. But we'll just go ahead and get started. Cami, are you ready?
Let's do it.
So a little introduction about Cami and myself. We are the co-founders of Wed Society, which is hosting this webinar today. And this is one of our favorite topics, is marketing and branding. For about 15 years, we have also co-owned and operated several different media brands. Some of you that are attending may be familiar. Brides of Oklahoma is what we started about 15 years ago. Brides of North Texas was born, I would say, about 12 years ago. I might have my numbers wrong there. We also have Brides of Austin, that's about 6 years old, if I'm not mistaken, and Brides of Houston. So we have a number of brides, media brands, and are constantly trying to connect couples to the very best wedding vendors in the marketplace. And so we basically do a lot of studying of, the demographic, our target market, which are couples actively planning in these different local marketplaces, and feel like we have a very good pulse on the way that they think, and the kinds of content that they act upon and that tends to resonate with them. We also have a companion branding marketing arm of our company called Brand Link Media. And Brand Link supports creative entrepreneurs and creative companies, those connected to the wedding world, on any number of levels. Cammie always likes to say anything that you see, that a couple might see or read.
Or touch.
Our touch is something that we're capable of kind of helping you fine tune and finesse and polish up. So that means, website design, branding, marketing strategy. We do a ton of marketing plans for companies, any sort of digital marketing endeavor, signage, truck wraps. I mean, we have done the whole thing. And so when it comes to, branding and ensuring that every company understands who their ideal client is, and spend some time developing what we call a value proposition, which we'll talk about, and that all of the online and visual imagery that's put out there is consistent with that brand that you've established and that value proposition. So today we're going to talk about the top 10 sort of biggest brand mistakes a company can make. And I think from each of those talking points, we'll be able to improve our own brands. So feel free to drop in any questions. Let us know how we can address any particular matter that's important to you. I thought we'd start by just kind of defining what is branding, because it has become sort of an animal this day and age. I mean, it used to be like what you would think of as a logo or a design mark, right, Cammie? Just to give you some background on Cammie, she is a total creative. I'm more on the marketing strategy side, business strategy, definitely not a designer, but Cammie leads our creative and design team and can visualize things and, listen to a business owner's, thoughts and ideas and really start to help them sort of visualize and create what, has just been sort of brewing in their head. So,
Yep.
But yeah, now branding has become a much bigger deal. I mean, we have personal brands, we have influencer marketing, we have the world of social media. So, but at the core, branding is what, differentiates your company or your products and services from that of another. So what makes you different? Why would someone want to hire you? I also love, saying people have so many choices when it comes to, especially just in the wedding industry. If they're looking to, we'll just say a photographer, they're looking to hire a photographer. And we do a lot of, vendors do a lot of advertising and marketing to try to promote themselves so that they can be found. But once you're found, you have to be chosen, right? You have to be chosen by your ideal client to be trusted to, for them to work with you. So I think, there's something about being found, but if you're found and your brand doesn't look polished, it doesn't look professional, there's too many, disconnects between what they're seeing and they're reading on your website, your social, or, any other place that your brand is present. That's when the idea of you being chosen to work with them, you might not win that business. And so I think, Cammie, if you want to make any comments on the side, but
yeah, brands to me are basically visuals and words. So those are the two things, if you at its simplest form, that you need to be found and trusted. So, and you need consistency in both, because brand consistency is trust, like Ashley said. So in order for people to trust you, they have to feel like they know you. And for them to know you, they have to become aware of you and recognize you and remember you. And so, like Ashley said, if there's just a disconnect on all of your platforms and and your visuals and the words you choose to use, you have to re-engage and let them re-recognize you every time they see you. Mm-hmm. So words and visuals at its simplest form.
Yeah, and I mean, that's also sort of where Brand Link Media was born, is we do a lot of promotion for our clients, our partners that we work with across the media brands. We promote them through social. We do content creation photo shoots with them. Like, we are doing, we feature them in the magazine and all of that good stuff. But what we were discovering is that our couples might recognize or, start to be able to like notice like trends and who they were. And, Remy and Gold is a really good example that comes to mind as like a very, very, great brand. And she's got such a special brand identity. She's a florist in Austin. But there are others that like we would position them and promote them in one, way, shape, or form. But then the way that they were presenting themselves on their own social media or their own website, there was definitely a disconnect, and that was causing a lot of question marks in the minds of couples who were looking to hire that person. So let's dive in, Cammie. Let's talk about like some of the biggest branding mistakes that companies can make. And I think there's a lot of dialogue that we can have for anyone. It might prompt some questions that you have, but here's some, branding mistakes, and hopefully we can give you some insights and ideas on how to avoid making some of these mistakes.
Okay, so number one is just a broad one. It's not having a plan for your business. So I think a lot of people believe that if you build it, they will come. That's not the case, right? Like, we have to be found, we have to be remembered, and we have to be recognized. So, I think back to, Ashley said earlier about the marketing plan is once your name is chosen and you know what you're going to do, like, what is the plan? What's your visuals going to look like? What are your words going to be? How do you describe yourself? How are you going to find your audience? So developing a marketing plan. And I would love to see in the chat how many of you that are here have done a marketing plan for your business, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, a 100-page marketing plan or anything super sophisticated. And sometimes there's a need for a marketing plan or strategy for some subcomponent of the business or some new product or service that you're trying to get off the ground. And that's, it's mini marketing plan. But far too many times, I feel like we're talking to clients that didn't develop the plan from the outset and have felt like they are just shooting from the hip and, blindly in the dark about, trying this strategy or that strategy, when really, they didn't lay out sort of what their game plan was going to be from the outset. And that can make a huge difference. I'm a cart before the horse girl. I used to not like to even think about the idea of developing a marketing plan. It felt like it was going to slow me down. But what it does is it helps prevent mistakes and,
dollars spent
to fix those mistakes. So just having a really solid strategy as you move into any new service or product or launching a business is so important, and kind of saying from the outset, how am I going to gauge the success of this campaign or this strategy? And we call those key performance indicators in the marketing world. And it's, setting those out in advance, and then deciding you're going to engage in X, Y, and Z marketing strategy, and knowing from the outset, like, this is how you're judging the success of it. So you're not just shooting from the hip. You've given a lot of thought. You've developed a strategy. You've decided how you're going to measure your success. And then once the campaign has been put into motion, you can then look back and say, okay, like, how close did we come? I mean, marketing is all about tweaking, fine tuning, and that sort of thing. Yes.
Hope made a good point.
Oh, yeah.
You may have a marketing plan, but things like COVID happen, hopefully never again. But sometimes you might have to have an interim marketing plan that is tailored to the specific needs of the time that we're in. Doesn't mean you won't go back to your original marketing plan, but you need to be able to shift and have that. And when it's not outlined, you are just waking up and saying, what do I need to do today, versus looking at your plan and really targeting and hitting those key points.
Yeah. And speaking of COVID, I mean, obviously, I mean, there's things that are, I mean, this whole deal is outside of our control with the pandemic, but there are ways that we can pivot and shift, and people will continue to get married. Those marriages might look a little different. And honestly, it might come down to who that target market is, you know? I've been doing a little bit more research on this lately as a result of COVID, just in terms of millennials and the Gen Zers and that kind of thing. And how, you might have an older couple in the wedding world that wants to just tie the knot really quickly. They're going to have a micro ceremony. They're not worried about the big lavish event later, but they've been waiting to get married for so long, and they're just going to do it right now in the midst of COVID, and it just might be smaller and different. But you could have, a Gen Zer or somewhere in between that Gen Z millennial generation that's like, I'm still ready to have a big, beautiful, authentic, unique, amazing wedding. And if I have to wait till next summer to do that, I'm going to do that. And maybe I'm going to spend a little bit more because I've been saving for this. So I really think it just kind of comes down to what's important to that, demographic, and everybody, I'm sort of overgeneralizing here, but then how do we tailor our strategy to kind of speak to that demographic and what they want or what their needs are. What's number 2, Cami?
Number 2 is not defining your brand strategy before you start building your company. So what that means is, so we have our plan for the business itself, what are our goals and how are we going to achieve them? But the brand strategy is, what do we want it to look like? What do we want it to feel like? What do we want the experience to be for our clients? And I think a lot of times people just say, and then this kind of ties into number 3 a little bit, but I'll just pick a logo. I'll just pick some colors. I'll just, throw up my words. Well, that's when you start to fizzle and the consistency is just not there. So defining who you really are at the core and what your mission is and what problems you're going to solve is such a important foundation for the look and feel of your brand.
Mm-hmm. And let's, face it, so much of sort of the look and how we are presenting ourselves is largely on social these days. And I've shared this stat before, but from a recent surveying that we did of sort of couples that are planning in the marketplaces that we serve, they were telling us that they are more inclined to visit a vendor's Instagram, maybe even before they visit their actual website. And so having a really strong brand presence and visuals on Instagram, on those visual mediums, is so important. There are tools out there that allow you to create some, branded templates, or you could work with a company like BrandLink to just spin up some really beautiful branded templates that you can drop images into so that you look a little bit more professional in stories. And in the grid, what we call it, the 3 images across that are stacked on top of each other on Instagram specifically. That's what we refer to as the grid. Some really great branded content there too. Is a huge differentiator between you and the next company that they might be looking at. There was one other thought I had on the Instagram thing about how couples are more inclined to look at a brand's Instagram, maybe even before their website. Oh, I know what it was. I was out to dinner. I am not a millennial. I fall outside of the scope. I'm a Gen Xer. So if you think about, like, this is nothing I would ever do, but I was out to dinner with some girls in our office, actually, on a business meeting. And this was pre-COVID. But the first thing they did at this brand new, amazing restaurant, when we sat down to order, they didn't even look at the menu, guys. Didn't even look at the menu. They pulled up the restaurant's Instagram, and they not only looked at the branded content on that restaurant's Instagram, but they also looked at the tagged photos of all the different food that people were sharing. And they made their decision of what they were going to eat that night based on what they saw on that restaurant's Instagram. They did not even look at the menu, and they showed the waiter the picture of something that they liked, and they asked him a few questions about what it was. But again, like, I think we've heard the comment too, like, why would I read something when I could just watch a YouTube video about it? Like, we have to put ourselves, if you're a Gen Xer like me, or you're outside of that millennial or Gen Z demographic, like, you have to remember, who you're speaking to and how they've grown up with technology. And some don't remember a world without a smartphone, and how they're using technology to engage with your business, and how they're making decisions based on the way you look on social media.
Getting judged all day long.
Oh, I know.
We were in a meeting the other day with an older gentleman. He's a doctor, and we told him that story, and he couldn't even fathom that is the way that some people are working. So
I know. Let's hope we don't choose our doctor that way ever. But hey, this world is telehealth. I mean, convenience is everything, right? Okay, what's number 3, Kimmy?
So number 3 kind of ties into number 2, but starting with a cheap brand identity. So, a lot of people we've worked with have come to us and said, oh, I just bought it off of Etsy. It was like $20. It got me going. Well, here you are at a point now where you're 3 months, 6 months, a year in, and you're basically having to redo your identity because it's not on brand with who you really are. So yes, it's going to take a little bit of investment up front, but having that foundation to not have to spend the time to redo it again and to have that clear picture from the beginning is invaluable. I cannot say it enough to clients that we meet with. It's just like $20 versus whatever this additional cost is going to be a lifesaver. I mean, think about how many people you could lose on that brand switch the first time you do it. So not starting with a cheap brand identity that's just thrown together.
Yeah, I mean, it sets the tone for everything. It really does. It gives a level of professionalism from the very outset of the company. And it's just important. And I feel like you can build off of it in so many other ways, and it makes it easier to build off of it when you love it and you feel like it 1000% represents who you are, and it's going to attract that ideal client. So, okay, what's number 4?
Number 4 is inconsistencies across different platforms and mediums. And that, that goes back to a lot of the brand voice and also the visuals. If they're on your website, maybe they jump on your website and that's how they, originally learn about you. And it's, pretty, and it's got the florals and it's got blue colors and the great language. And then they hop over to your Instagram and they see red pictures that just kind of random. They're going to be like, are these the two, the same people? And same with brand voice. And one of the smallest, most important things is making sure your name is consistent across all the channels. So if you use ink, like, ABC ink in some places, but you don't use it in other, that's also an issue with Google finding you. So whether it's Google My Business, your website, Instagram, your business name needs to be consistent as well. And that's a huge factor.
Yeah, I mean, speaking on that technical side, it's called NAP, or some people, I've heard them say NAPE. It's name, address, and phone number. There's an article on Wed Society about this. Actually, I think it's a video from our SEO specialist that talks about how inconsistency with the name, address, and phone number across multiple different places will send a red flag to Google, and they won't know which one to trust. And so you're less likely to rank in, search results for different keywords. So having consistency with name, address, and phone number is super important, and it's so basic. But that means your Google My Business profile, all your social media profiles, and your website and all the channels. There's also a tool that we use for some of our clients, and it's listing management directories. And basically it gets your business listed across a number of different directories, some of which you may have never heard of, but these generate valuable backlinks to your website. I'm kind of getting into a little bit of SEO here, not less about branding, but it's just so important that your business is listed and is seen and does have valuable backlinks, and that the healthiness of those links is maintained. And yeah, the disconnect between your website and social, like you said, everything's like perfectly branded on the website, but you jump over to Instagram and it looks completely different, and you kind of have a question mark then. Is this the same company? Wait a minute, maybe I clicked on the wrong link here. That's what our survey of couples that were planning told us, that sometimes they saw with vendors that we were promoting in the way that they were positioning themselves. And our top priority is to position them in the best light possible, that is as consistent as possible with who they are and the caliber of work that they are capable of creating. but I don't know who falls into this category, but for lack of time, lack of expertise, having to wear all the hats as a solo entrepreneur, sometimes that doesn't get updated on the, the vendors channels, website and social and that sort of thing. And they never see that content. And it does feel like a bit of a disconnect.
Or even let's think about it reverse. What if they, stumble across you from a tagged photo from one of your colleagues and they go to your Instagram and it's perfectly branded, it's exactly what you want it to be. Then they click over to your website where they're supposed to be contacting you and getting pricing information, and they just bounce because they see the disconnect. So, the return on the investment from the perfect channel, Instagram, to your sad channel website could be losing, lots of customers that way. I was going to also add one of the most common, I think, things I see with the name inconsistencies is like if you have a plus sign or an ampersand in your name, being consistent which one of those you're going to use, or maybe it's and spelled out. That's one we see a lot that's inconsistent across several channels.
Yeah. And we're also a big cheerleader for, I'm going to plug Later here right now. I know there are other tools like Planoly or whatnot. But in terms of social media, if you're not using a tool to help you plan out, schedule content, and think strategically about how you're posting and what you're posting, these tools can really be a time saver and help you put your best foot forward on social so that there aren't, there's not this disconnect. And Cami, I don't know how many times you've asked people like, are you one of those that plans out and, really thinks about the content that you're posting? Or do you look up and say, oh my gosh, it's 2:00. What am I going to post today? And sometimes that kind of
95%.
Yeah, and it can really do your business a disservice. So you have capability with just a little, I would say an hour or two each month, and you'll get even faster and quicker at it. Or if you don't have time to do that, find someone that can outsource these important things so that you can focus more on your craft and driving the business forward. But when what you look like and what you're saying and what you're posting online is so important, it needs to be given time, thought, and attention. Okay, Cami, what's number 5? Is that where we are?
Number 5 is connecting with the right, or not connecting with the right audience. So think about how much time and energy it would take just to get everyone to know about your company or your business, when maybe 40% of those or 60% don't care about your business. You might be putting dollars towards that. You might be putting, obviously all the efforts you've put into your brand are going towards that. So really honing in and identifying who your target audience is and what niche that is. And I actually just copied into the chat the link again, if nobody or wasn't able to get it yet, to the worksheet that kind of talks about developing this audience. But it's so important that you know specifically who your audience is so that you're not wasting any time going after those clients that aren't your ideal client. And, in wedding industry in particular, we have meetings with a lot of people who say, I just want to book business. And I think that is okay to a certain extent until you maybe really, really define what you're going after. If you're going after the luxury client and you can't get that right away, that is fine. But eventually you need to make that shift to only point towards that target audience that you're wanting.
Yeah. And then again, when it comes to branding, what you say and what you post needs to be catered to what's going to resonate with that target audience. And once you've worked through, I feel like one of the best pages in the workbook that you shared, Cami, is the Who is My Ideal Client. I think it's on page 3 or 4. And I'm seeing that some people don't have the link or can't access it. So we're going to make sure that you guys can access this. But it literally find a picture of someone that embodies, just a random picture on the web or whatever, or even better, talk to someone that you feel like is your ideal client. Ask them where do they shop? What kinds of foods do they like to eat? What sort of education do they have? What are their hobbies? What are their interests? Who do they hang out with? What do they do on the weekends? What are their
shopping habits?
What are their biggest worries? And then knowing all of that about who your ideal client is, will start to really paint a clear picture of, okay, now I know what kinds of content I need to post and the things that I need to be saying that are going to help my message resonate with that person. And I honestly, I love it so much that I'd almost keep it handy, a visual on my phone or by my desk where I like look at this person almost, weekly, if not daily. And everything I do is sort of guided by, okay, like this person in the back of my mind. And it will definitely help make, scheduling out content for social or coming up with the right blog post, or even just the messaging on your website. It will make it so much easier. And if you need help, we're here to help you with that. We do this all the time. We tend to include it in our marketing plans that we develop for companies, but it is very easy to kind of paint this picture, the customer avatar, that ideal client. Okay, are we still having trouble? Cami, can you tell?
I put it in the chat. You want to copy it and put it back in the chat? Maybe it's because you're a host.
Okay, yeah, hold on one second, guys.
And I think too, if you're, before you maybe go pull people or ask other people, or maybe develop the ideal client worksheet, look at your current client base. Maybe your current client base is your ideal client. There's no need to take a wild guess if you have a good list in front of you, and maybe take some time to outline maybe their age bracket, their income level, where they're coming from, their location, some of the questions that are on the worksheet, and get a good snapshot to see if your current client base is ideal.
Mm-hmm. Another article, and I'm still working on this workbook here, because that's definitely going to be the best takeaway from this chat today. But here is another resource that some of you, if you've been on Wed Society calls, wait, hold on. Let's see, to all panelists and attendees. Sorry, guys. Okay. All right, there's a link to a very simple formula that will help you also identify your ideal customer. And it's, the article walks you through this formula. It's very easy to develop, but it's basically I or we, however you look at your business, help X, and X is your ideal client, do Y, whatever their unique need is, by providing Z. And that's the unique way that you meet their need. It takes a little bit of time. It's something that you'll want to get feedback from other people that know you or know your business, or former clients or whatnot. But you can start to sort of hone in on a one sentence, like succinct value proposition that then will help guide the direction of things that you post, and pictures, and your messaging, and all of that. So
I'm going to read our Wed Society value proposition, just so you guys can hear one.
Yeah.
Okay, Wed Society helps driven, motivated wedding vendors focus intentionally on strengthening and growing their business by providing educational resources, creative inspiration, and opportunities to build a powerful network among like-minded industry professionals. It's a long sentence, Ashley.
I know, and I would love for it to be more succinct. And I think I say even in the article link that I shared that this is still, we're trying to keep it living and breathing, but it could still use some finesse,
Yep.
But the things that I love about it is, our ideal client are, for Wed Society, are vendors like you all that are intentionally focused on making improvements and bettering their business. Like we're not trying to reach any and every wedding vendor. Like we want the people to stay connected with us that will value the resources that we're putting out there, that will be active and engaged with in the conversations and the webinars that we host. And those are people that are going to be focused intentionally on, making improvements to their business. So anyway, another fun stat in that first part of the article is that it says, it's widely held that many businesses don't succeed because they have weak value propositions. So again, I'm not saying I'm 1,000% in love with ours, but it does help hone in on who your ideal client is, and helps kind of put you in a position to speak more to that ideal client. So now everything that we do and everything that we're, posting and focusing on is, designed to, hopefully catch the attention, grab the attention of those that are vendors that are intentionally focusing on improving their business. Cami, I'm having a hard time with the workbook PDF.
Okay, I sent it again. I think I'd send it to all panelists instead of attendees. So see if you guys got it and let me know.
Okay, perfect.
It should be drive.google.com with a long string of letters behind it.
Okay, and it's public. It's a link that's open to the public.
Got it and working.
Okay,
All
yay.
right. Another way to kind of gather some of your data for your ideal client demographics is Google Analytics. And I'm going to say this to all of you. Hopefully none of you fall in this category, but if you do not have Google Analytics on your website, you are doing a lot of harm to your business. So go get it today. You don't have to know everything about it, but just get it so that you have it, and anybody that you work with that does understand it has the data.
And can I add Search Console to that as well? I mean, wouldn't you agree, Cami?
Both free, yes, both free through Google. And if Google says it, then it must be true, right? And then also social media analytics. Facebook Insights, Instagram Insights, Pinterest Insights offer a great bit of data on who your customers are. So you can kind of gather in and hone in on all four of those. I think you're going to have a great pool, and then you can kind of develop it further with the workbook.
Yeah. And our mantra around here with data is like, it's not enough just to even pull the data. And it can be overwhelming and intimidating to look in Google Analytics and that sort of thing. But even if you were to, again, like think about outsourcing or tapping into someone to help you really analyze and draw some conclusions from the data, like that's where you really have an opportunity to grow and change or pivot in the right ways to drive more traction that will lead to more inquiries and that kind of thing. So I would say, we spend maybe an hour pulling all these reports and data, and 2 to 3, if not more hours analyzing it and, talking to, other, shall I call us data nerds, about what it means, what this data means, and then how should we adjust our strategy based on the data.
Let me tell you, I am the creative, but I have, the data really gets me. I love putting the pieces together and making it a puzzle. There's on my Post-it note, rather than my actual notes, I wrote this and I forgot to add it. So those of you that have maybe salespeople or frontline people that are doing some of this selling for your business, they're also a great resource to talk about the demographics and the ideal client. I'm sure they've had many conversations with potential clients that they're like, we do not want that client. That's not our client. So maybe you can kind of back in some of that data too from their experiences and to develop the right client.
Like the customer avatar. Yeah. Like these are some traits and characteristics that we know to avoid, or, we don't want to play into this. We're trying to avoid this type of client. So yeah.
That is okay. If they're not your ideal client for whatever reason. I mean, I think we've all been through experiences where we went ahead and worked with that person and to result in a bad review or to an expectation that's not met. So it is okay to say, this is not my client and I'm not going to do this service. So we have to be okay with that. Okay.
Number 6.
Number 6 is attaching your brand to the wrong things. And what I mean by this is, the quickest example I can think to give you is, say you're a photographer, florist, wedding planner, venue, whatever. It's going great. And then all of a sudden you add a new page to your website where you're selling essential oils or a line of jewelry. It causes confusion and distrust. It tells your potential client that you are not focused on this thing anymore. You're moving on and have other distractions. So, or maybe it's a sponsorship you do. Maybe it's, just think about where your brand and what it aligns with and the kind of demographic that potential other business has. And if they align, if they do, great. It's great exposure and great cross promotion.
Mm-hmm. Another good example that is kind of a quintessential, marketing 101 case study is when Colgate, the toothpaste brand, tried to branch out into the frozen food business. And this was in the 80s when the frozen food business was just kind of ramping up. And it came back to bite them. And again, they were just thinking, okay, we've already built a strong brand, but they were recognized as the toothpaste brand, and they probably had a lot of great, business winning strategies that they could have employed for the frozen business or for the frozen food side of the business. But it was evident that people didn't like that being under Colgate's brand, and they should have, developed a new brand that didn't leave a bad taste, no pun intended, in people's mouths about toothpaste and frozen foods. It just didn't work. And so I think those are some of the things that, and again, it can come back to the value proposition. Does this fall in line with something that I think will resonate with this target audience? And if it does, then it might be okay to kind of focus on with your brand. But if it doesn't, then it's probably a sign that this is something that you need to think about a different brand, a different company, so that you don't tarnish, your own brand and loyal followers that love your brand, but might not love frozen foods or might not love essential oils or whatever. So, okay, number 7.
Number 7 is not providing a great brand experience. So I think a lot of companies or people, again, we just see the visuals and the words, but the experience that you have or a client has when they come to your venue or have you at their wedding to shoot it is a huge part of the brand. And that's what they're going to take and spread about your brand is the experience that they had. So everything from the first email they get from you to the way you speak to them on the phone, to the communication that you have, all of that is the brand experience, and making sure that is top notch is one of the more invaluable things you can do for your business.
Yes. Oh, so many things crossing my mind here. I want to talk about the landscape company, Kimmy, in just a second, but before we get to that, reviews. Okay. It is evident. I don't have the statistics right in front of me, but I mean, I know this firsthand, but we are all influenced by reviews. We all look at reviews for companies. And so, when you can get a client to leave a positive review, preferably on Google, honestly, I mean, that's where people are, the world's largest search engine, but I know there are third party, other, applications and that sort of thing where, more industry specific, like the Knot or Wedding Wire. But ideally, all of those positive reviews need to also be on Google. And there's a simple email marketing automation that you can do depending on what email platform you're using to help generate those. Or, you can do the reach out. You can do it manually. We've got an article on this on Wed Society as well. I'll try to drop that into the chat in just a minute. But that is priceless. And one of the automations, it would just be set to sort of send to the client a week, a month, like however long, like once they're back from their honeymoon, after you've serviced them with, hopefully like they are just raving reviews. It prompts them, it says, we've all seen these emails before, answer one question for us or give us a little feedback, like how did we do, and it'll say 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 or whatever. And you can set the parameters. So if it's anything less than a 4 or 5 or 9 or 10, it would kind of generate them back to your website. It would share with them how, much you value, the experience that your customers have and that sort of thing. And it prompts them to sort of give you more feedback. But if it's a 9 or 10 or 4 or 5 or whatever you're comfortable with, then it just automatically sends them over to Google and it asks them to leave a review. Again, this can be a manual process, but it's something that should be given a lot of time and attention. People do pay very close attention. They associate a lot of value with reviews, and it doesn't have to be all 5 stars. In fact, there's some consumer trust surveys that have been done that say that if it is like all 5 stars and that sort of thing, like they start to think, I don't know if I really trust that this client or that this venue or this photographer is the end all be all. So it's okay that there's a little negative review here and there. It's also super important that you're responding to those reviews, whether positive or negative, and that those responses are timely. So I don't know how I got into reviews from what you said.
It's all part of it.
But yeah, let's give the landscape example, because I think that's a great one, Kimi.
Yeah, so earlier in the year, my husband and I were looking for a landscaping company to redo some seasonal flowers and stuff in our flower beds. And I reached out to 6 people, and I'm sure a lot of brides can kind of put this in perspective with the wedding industry. I reached out to 6 different landscape companies, and I heard back from 2 of them. One of them was in the area, and he said, I can come by today. And so he came by. He didn't bring a notebook, just some unprofessional things that just kind of turned me off from the beginning. And the other company, I received a text message back immediately with 3 times that week that they could meet. And then as soon as I clicked the button and responded to which one, in my inbox, I had an entire portfolio gallery of the work that I had selected that I was interested in having, in the service I was looking to have. So they were hired before I even spoke to the person or got a quote from them, because it was so easy. I could tell that they were, being as efficient with my time as possible. They were giving me the things I asked for and the answers I was looking for. And I mean, that was it,
And they looked like $1 million.
They looked like $1 million. So that's who we used. And he's came back twice now to do a few other things that were down my list as second priorities. But the professionalism from the outset, and I hadn't even spoken to them yet. So that just kind of shows you, and we live in a world of immediacy, right? If somebody has to wait 4 days for an email back just to let them know that they received it, they're probably going to see who responded quicker. So I hate that we live in a world of such immediacy, but we do. And there are some automation things you can do that, isn't you up at midnight because that's when people are online looking at vendors and requesting things is at midnight when they're thinking about these things. So having some type of automation that responds, that is sort of personal, could land more deals than not.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah,
Sorry
I can't
for
emphasize that enough. Oh, no. And it's a great example. Okay. Number 7.
Okay. So using copy that doesn't accurately describe your brand. So this is very harmful if you just, you start, and this is before, you have this worksheet, you're just one day sitting down typing what your business is without doing the work behind it. And the customer comes in and has their experience and does their event. And they said, well, that really wasn't who they were. That was not the message I got. It sends that mixed message and distressed. So working through the actual descriptive words that your business is, the voice characteristics that you have, and making sure not only do you look that way through online and website purposes, but when you're in person with that, the values that you have, the company mission that you have is all in line. Otherwise they'll see through it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's keep going on that one too. Number 8.
Let's see. Avoid copying competitors. Be you. This is one we see so often, is that, oh, there's another venue, I'm just going to go take some language from their site, or, whatever kind of venue it is or vendor it is. They're not you. They don't have the same strengths that you do. So this is where finding what you do better than any of your competition, or what you do different, why they should hire you over somebody else. So like Ashley said earlier, I'm going to go look for 6 landscape companies that do what I can find that they do that I need, right? And I'm going to compare them across all the ways, the way they look, the way they sound, the way professionalism, all the things. So you need to outline why you stand out, why you're different, and project that everywhere.
Mm-hmm. On page 3, I think it's on the page that says ideal client, but halfway down it says competitors. And it doesn't mean that you don't have a good pulse on your top competitors and what they're doing, because this little worksheet right here at the bottom half, helps you really hone in on what they're doing well, where they're falling short, who they cater to, and all of that can help position you and your brand to be more successful in the market. But no 2 vendors are alike, no 2 venues are alike. And so really just honing in on what makes you incredibly special. Why should they choose you? And who is that target market? And how are we going to position our brand to sort of, with the messaging and the visuals, to resonate with that target audience? So I think always looking and analyzing the competition is a good thing. Just, be you, like Kimmy said.
Yeah.
You can also do this on, and speaking to the data side, you can also look at your competitors, or, especially a marketing company, if you're working with someone or a freelancer, you can look at your competitors and the health of their website and SEO, and you can find some opportunities there to generate valuable backlinks to your website, or to use certain keywords that maybe you hadn't thought of, that they might be using and having a lot of success with. Doesn't necessarily mean like you take it and use it and it doesn't apply. Like you use keywords and search phrases and things like that. You develop a content piece that's unique to you, but that's still going to drive traffic that you're wanting to capture. So Okay.
I think, I think a lot of times people are like, oh, my competitors, like, I don't want to be friends with them. Like, I want to do my own thing. And there are enough events to go around, right? No bride is going to choose two venues. She chose one over the other because of some feature. And so I am all about, and we're a community here, it's what Wed Society was built around, but I'm all about, making connections with other people in your specific niche and finding out what works for them and what doesn't, if they'll share. But
Mm-hmm.
I fully believe that if you share, it'll come back.
Mm-hmm. And, I think also like wedding planners who are, a great referral source, I think they're broadening from what, I have heard through conversations with some of our planners in the different markets. They're broadening their, what's the word?
The network, the group.
Their network of vendors. And I think it's prompted because couples, Gen Zers and millennials that we were talking about earlier, they want options and they want to have an event that is authentic to them as a couple. They care more about that. They don't want it to be cookie cutter in any way. And so, weddings, we all know weddings have changed. They've morphed into something like incredibly unique to the couple. And that's what makes, finding a vendor and choosing a vendor two like separate things. They're going to choose who fits them, their style, what they're hoping to achieve, and that kind of thing. I'm going to drop a link in here because I know we've talked about a little, a lot of demographic stuff to the Pew Research Center. So this is just talking about Gen Z versus millennials and kind of, some interesting stats that could help guide and shape your marketing efforts. So here is the link to that article that you guys can explore.
And one note back on number 8, when I was talking about using copy that doesn't accurately describe your brand, one other note I just kind of wanted to drop in there is, example, I want to be casual. I want my voice to be casual, but not sloppy. I want my voice to be, confident, but not cocky, so kind of think of some of those, the tone you want. And then on the worksheet, page 2 are the do's and don't words. So if there's a word that you feel like just has a negative connotation, mark that in the don't column, and don't let anyone who's doing your social, writing your website copy, or anything for your brand use that word, because it goes against the value.
Mm-hmm.
So I put that in the wrong number.
Yeah. And this workbook too. Yeah. It could totally be handed off to someone that you're working with. And if they read through this, they should know everything they need to know about how to position your brand or how to talk about your brand, and promote you, just by having sort of this worksheet in front of them, what to do and what not to do.
Yep.
Okay. Are we to number 10?
Number 10 is straying too far away from what made you successful in the first place. Ashley and I are notorious for this. I think all entrepreneurs, an idea comes up and you want to chase it. You want to go down that rabbit hole and see if it's viable. But within your brands that you're currently doing, you have to, like on number 6, you have to stay true to what the company is and what made it successful, and build from that, and not get distracted with other shiny objects.
Yeah. And this is especially important, I feel like, for anyone that's listening or attending today that has an established brand that probably does have some loyal, fans and followers, like not a startup. But an example that comes to mind is when Gap redid their logo and no one liked it, like they received a lot of backlash from that. So if you're looking to do a brand refresh, whether it's just the visuals, a lot of times that's good, but you also see those vendors that are like changing their brand like all the time, and sometimes that can be confusing and maybe, cause some you to lose some followers. So just protect your brand, protect who you are. You've built something special. People value it. You do have loyal followers, and make sure that you don't just change on a whim, and you really think about how to do a brand refresh, and that sort of thing. Okay. We've done a lot of talking. We've done a lot of sharing links. I think I would just wrap it up, and happy to take any questions that you guys have. But
we do have one question. So whenever you wrap up here.
Okay. Yeah. Is that, couples today, at least if we're going to be guided by data, and the research, the link that I just dropped in, they want choices, They're looking for something special. They're looking for unique vendors. They want their weddings to be unique and authentic and special. We're marketing to a demographic that, again, like I said, has grown up with a smartphone and, technology. Their preferred social channel is YouTube, followed by Instagram. We need to think about the way that we consume information is not the same way that couples today are consuming information, or through the same channels. And that's where it's a challenge sometimes, and you feel like it's just a struggle to keep up. But you've really just got to focus in on those channels, develop a content strategy or a marketing plan, make sure that you're do the value proposition exercise and the workbook that we shared. And then I think that will give so much clarity to sort of what you're posting, where you're posting, what you're saying, all the messaging to sort of resonate with that audience and that demographic. Kimmy?
Okay, so our question is from Officially Oaks, and there's a small 2-person business. It's an officiant service with smaller profit margins than a traditional wedding vendor, and can't quite afford to be listed on the Knot and some of the other bigger places, at least right now. Are we at a disadvantage, and what are some other ways we can be found? The number one way to be found, I believe, and it's free, is networking, right? So making yourself available and, picking up the phone and calling wedding planners and calling venues around the area. Sorry, my dog saw a rabbit. Making building those relationships with those people. They're the ones that are positioned first in front of the bride and groom and other couples, and could be the biggest resource for you. And it's just kindness.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, those vendor communities are also going to be looking at the level of professionalism of your company and your brand, not just that personal one-on-one, but what does the website look like? What is your the primary social mediums look like? That's important. We're in a very visual driven, industry. So looking professional even to the industry can make or break. And I think there's a certain strategy too outside of, some people are more comfortable in a networking environment than others, but I think there are some great follow-ups and some great, content that you can deliver to industry professionals that might refer you. So yeah, nothing beats a great referral network, wedding planners in particular for an officiant, I would think. But outside of that, obviously we're a media brand, so we're a big fan of, any form of digital marketing, and our brides brands offer a way to kind of connect with local communities and get to know each other, and then be a part of our online directory and that sort of thing. But then, you can do some strategic social advertising and not break the bank necessarily. But again, you can't just shoot from the hip. That's got to be a well thought out campaign. That's got to be visually dynamic. And at the end of the day, you have to remember, they're going to go to my website. They're probably going to look at my social a little more critically once they see the ad. And that's going to affect whether or not they convert. And so you can sometimes save dollars with a marketing campaign that's tied to, Instagram or Facebook or a joint, digital marketing strategy like that. But everything else, you got to have all the other ducks in a row.
Yeah. I think another question, I don't think anybody asked this one, but another question that we hear all the time with BrandLink is, I feel like I'm being consistent with my brand, but it's not really working. I'm not getting the bookings I want. Should I change up my brand? And to that, I would say maybe. We see a lot of very poor visual branding out there. And so it's not doing your business any favors if it looks dated, or if it's, not consistent across all the channels like we've talked about. But I also want to deter people from just making that switch overnight without having the data to back it up, or, if your bounce rate's really high, maybe there's some changes, but don't just on a whim think it's not working because it didn't work overnight and change it again. So
I'm going to plug one other thing. Retargeting is so critical. And this is, I know we've all heard the term, we've all been the subject of retargeting, but I feel like a great retargeting campaign can go a long way. And by that, if someone, you've been to the, you've visited a website, and then all of a sudden you hop on social, and the next time you're on there, you're being retargeted with an ad for that company. And it's so that you remain top of mind, or that they remain top of mind to you. You've also probably seen the, cart abandonment, stuff like that. But emails like, you left this in your cart, do you want to purchase this, or whatever. But an easy campaign to sort of set up, assuming the foundation's in place, would be a basic sort of retargeting. So people come to your website to learn more about your efficient services. They're obviously interested, and you can set some parameters where it's, they spend so many minutes on the site, or they look at so many pages, or whatever criteria you want. But then, like I said, they found you, but now they have to choose you, and they were probably exploring some other people. They may have inquired, they may not have. This is a way that you can kind of stay top of mind to that person, and appear in their social feeds. And a lot of times that can lead to more solid conversions in business. So just another little tidbit on a strategy that I've seen companies have a lot of success with. Let's see. Any other good questions, Cammie, that you've been asked along the way? We're right at the hour mark. We love talking marketing and branding and digital strategy, and love other entrepreneurs, especially small shops, solopreneurs, and where you're wearing lots of hats and just building something really special. So if we can ever be of assistance to any of you guys, or focus in after the chat today, you're probably going to get an email that will have links to some of the resources that we've shared. But we'll probably also, I think, prompt them to take advantage of an individualized brand consult. And it would be 100% focused on your business goals, what you're trying to accomplish. And there is a charge for that, but you can sign up after the chat if you'd like to partake in that. There's absolutely no pressure. Via Wed Society, we're going to continue to host these sorts of educational events and webinars, and we hope you'll join us for more marketing conversations. And then I will do a little plug for BrandLink Media, which is the marketing arm of our company. And here is the website. You can go check out quite a bit of work that's housed there in our portfolio, and some case studies and that kind of thing. And I think on the website it says you don't have to know what you need necessarily, you just know you need it. And that means, like, so many times we've talked to people, they're like, I'm just lost, there's not enough hours in the day, there's not enough time, I don't even know, like, what do you guys think? And that's okay. That's totally okay. And that's where we help, like, hone in on a strategy and determine like how we can be helpful. And marketing is so essential this day and age, and it can't be ignored, but there's a lot of expertise that goes into it with all the channels now. So Cammie, anything you would add to that?
Don't ask me that unless you want my answer. That's where my ideal client comes in. Like, for me, is they know they need help, and they're willing to listen to it, because it could be feedback that could be hurtful to feelings if they were the one who did it, but it's not the intention by any agency that's ever going to help you. They're looking at it from a user perspective, and are going to give you the honest feedback. So I think that's another thing I would say is, whether it's us you want to work with, or somebody else in your area, but listen to the feedback, because they are an unbiased set of eyes looking at your brand, and really want the best for it. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. But regardless, today I feel like the workbook and some of the links that we've shared will get you off on the right foot. If you haven't developed that value proposition, or a customer avatar of who that ideal client is, what they look like, and that kind of thing, this is a great exercise, and will probably get you really enthused about kind of moving forward with some things that you just had big question marks about, because you'll have a more clear idea of who you're marketing to, and that's really what it's all about. So
two last little things.
Okay.
Don't be hard on yourself. These things take time, right? We only have 8 hours in the day. 6 of it's probably spent doing our actual job. Yes. 2 hours is to focus on, moving things forward. And so just kind of set some dates and calendar entries for yourself to tackle some of these things. and don't feel like you have to just sit down and do a brain dump and get it done in, an hour. And they should take time. They should be evolving constantly. And my little quote that I'll leave you with is, if they don't get it, they won't remember it, and they don't know it's for them. That's kind of my new little thing I live by.
Say it again, Kimmy. I haven't heard that one.
If they don't get it, they won't remember it, and they won't know it's for them.
Okay.
So
that seems to be honing in on messaging and imagery, and how do you speak to someone so that they understand and they know it's for them and they want it and they want to choose you. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us today. If there aren't any other questions, we'll just try to be sensitive to everybody's time and sign on off here. But you guys have been great. There have been some great questions. We've done a little bit of research already, just to, the people that register to look at your businesses and that sort of thing. So just please let us know if we can be helpful in the future.
Thanks everyone.
So much. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.